The air in the old church hall felt thick with a cloying scent of lilies and something else, something brittle, like drying paint or forced smiles. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight piercing the stained glass window, illuminating a tableau of awkward perfection. People shuffled, practiced their steps, murmuring cues about confetti and seating charts. My sister, radiant and terrible in a simple white slip dress that hinted at the gown to come, floated past me, her eyes locked onto something only she could see, the shimmering mirage of her perfect day. She paused, a breath away, her smile tight, fixed. The murmur around us faded into a low hum. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut through the forced gaiety like glass. "Don't ruin my perfect day." The words landed, not like a threat, but a statement of absolute, unshakable will. A warning. A final demand for silence. The floral scent suddenly turned suffocating. The sunbeam felt cold. My stomach twisted, a knot of something old and bitter tightening within me. Her perfect day. A monument built on years of quiet cruelty, capped off by the ultimate act of calculated destruction. And I was standing here, surrounded by oblivious guests, being told to admire the architecture. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. My life before her perfect day was ordinary. And I mean that in the best possible way. Simple. Stable. I had my routines, my small apartment filled with books and plants, a job I didn't love but didn't hate either, and a handful of close friends who saw me, really saw me, flaws and all. My sister, Alara, was the comet in my quiet galaxy. Always brighter, always faster, always demanding attention, leaving a trail of disruption in her wake. Growing up, it was a constant performance. Her talents, her triumphs, her dramas. I was the steady background hum, the sensible one, the one who cleaned up the mess. I learned early that her needs eclipsed mine, that her happiness was paramount, and that my feelings were inconvenient. We weren't close, not in the way sisters on television were. There was always a distance, a cool competitiveness that she fueled, and I tried to ignore. She wanted what I had, even if she didn't actually want it. She just didn't want me to have it. When she announced her engagement to David, I was surprised. Not because David wasn't a catch, he was kind, successful, genuinely smitten with her. But Alara wasn't the marrying type, or so I thought. She craved excitement, drama, the chase. David seemed stable. I attended the engagement party, smiled, congratulated them. David seemed like a good man. I genuinely wished her happiness. For a brief, naive moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe she would finally settle down, find peace, and the competitive edge between us would soften. That was before I knew the depths of her capacity for malice. That was before she decided that my small, ordinary life was still too good, that my quiet happiness was an affront to her impending spectacular joy. The inciting incident wasn't a single event, not really. It was a campaign. A slow, deliberate poisoning of my small well. It started subtly. Whispers to family members, twisting innocent details about my life into something pathetic or scandalous. Little digs veiled as concern. Then it escalated.
My job.
It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was good at it. Reliable. I had built trust with clients, with colleagues. One day, things started to shift. Emails went unanswered. Clients became distant. A major project I was leading stalled, then was quietly reassigned. My boss, a man who had always praised my work, became cagey, avoiding eye contact. The atmosphere turned toxic. I felt watched, judged, like I was failing, but I didn't know why. I worked harder, stayed late, tried to fix the invisible problem. The stress was immense. Sleep became a luxury. My friends worried. My simple life, my stable foundation began to crack. It wasn't just my job. It bled into everything. A potential relationship fizzled after the person heard things about me. Social invitations dried up. I felt like I was living in a fog of quiet disapproval, everyone hearing something I didn't know how to refute. I confronted Alara. Not about the specific details of the sabotage. I didn't know them yet, but about the feeling, the whispers, the sense that she was undermining me. She played the wounded sister.
Me? Sabotaging you? How could you think that?
I'm planning my wedding. I don't have time for games. Maybe you're just struggling because, well, maybe you're just not as capable as you thought. She turned it back on me, sowing seeds of self-doubt where there was only confusion and hurt. It was a familiar tactic. I felt crazy, isolated. My early struggles were desperate attempts to regain control. I tried talking to my boss, asking directly what was wrong. He was evasive. Just some concerns raised. Nothing concrete, just general feedback about reliability. Reliability? I was the most reliable person in that office. I tried talking to friends of friends, tracing the source of the rumors. They were vague, amorphous. Oh, I just heard, always delivered with a sympathetic look that felt like a knife twist. The wedding planning, meanwhile, accelerated. Alara became consumed. Every detail was scrutinized, every vendor vetted, every decision a major pronouncement. Her social media was a highlight reel of bridal bliss. It was a stark contrast to my crumbling reality. She would call, ostensibly about wedding plans, but slip in comments about how busy she was, how stressful her life was, while mine seemed to be what? Falling apart? She never said it outright, but the implication hung heavy in the air. The crisis deepened. I lost my job. Not fired, technically. They restructured, and my position was eliminated. It felt like a death sentence. That small, ordinary life I cherished?
Gone.
Replaced by a gaping void of uncertainty and shame. How could I explain it? How could I move forward when it felt like my reputation had been silently poisoned? I retreated. The friends who had tried to help eventually faded away, perhaps tired of my inability to explain what was happening, perhaps having half believed the insidious rumors themselves. I spent days alone in my apartment, the silence amplifying the noise in my head. Her face, her feigned concern, her dismissiveness. It circled, a vicious, unending loop. I felt lower than I ever had, stripped bare. And she was ascending, her perfect day looming, a symbol of her triumph, not just in love, but in whatever twisted game she was playing with my life. It felt profoundly unjust. She had actively sought to harm me, to take away my stability and peace, and she was about to be rewarded with a picture-perfect future. The thought was a bitter poison in my gut. Then came the discovery. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic reveal. It was accidental. I was doing one last sweep through old files on my computer, clearing things out, facing the reality of needing to find any kind of work. I stumbled upon an old cloud storage account I barely used. And there, nested in a forgotten folder, were emails. Not mine. Sent from an anonymous account, but containing details only a handful of people would know about my work, my projects, my interactions. Details that had been weaponized. Lies woven with threads of truth. Fabrications about my performance, my attitude, my reliability. Sent to my boss, my colleagues, even forwarded indirectly to some of the clients I had lost. As I read, a cold, hard certainty settled over me. The language, the specific grievances, the subtle way my character was questioned. It was all chillingly familiar. It mirrored the whispers I'd heard, the vague accusations. And then I saw something else. A login record, a digital footprint pointing to a location, a time. It wasn't definitive proof linking the account directly to her, not yet, but it was a powerful lead. A shiver went down my spine. Not of fear, but of dawning, terrible understanding. This wasn't random. This wasn't just bad luck. This was deliberate, calculated. And the details in the emails, they could only have come from one person who had that level of intimate knowledge of my professional life, combined with a motive to destroy it. The confirmation came later, pieced together through painstaking, obsessive digging. Cross-referencing IP addresses with her travel schedule around the time the emails were sent. Finding a forgotten file name on a shared family drive that matched a document attached to one of the malicious emails. It was circumstantial, yes, but overwhelming. The pattern was unmistakable. The motive was clear. She didn't just want her perfect day. She wanted my imperfect life to be a stark contrast, a testament to her own supposed superiority. She needed me small, broken, and silent so her shine would be brighter. The midpoint shift wasn't a strategic decision at first, it was a primal urge. Finding that evidence, it was like being pulled from drowning. The confusion, the self-doubt, the feeling of going insane, it all vanished, replaced by a white-hot clarity. It wasn't me. It was her. All of it. The whispers, the job loss, the isolation. Her. And she was about to celebrate her victory lap, walking down the aisle, radiant and untouched by the damage she had wrought. My first thought was confrontation, to expose her, to scream the truth. But I knew it would be useless. She would deny it, spin it, gaslight not just me but everyone else. She was good at that. She would cry, play the victim of her cruel, jealous sister trying to ruin her happiness. And the evidence, while convincing to me, was complex, piecemeal. Hard to present convincingly to someone who didn't want to see it. Especially not when they were blinded by bridal glow.
No.
Confrontation was a dead end. It would just be another messy scene where she emerged smelling like roses, and I was the hysterical villain. She wanted me silent. She expected me silent. Broken.
She had banked on it.
That's what made the whisper at the rehearsal so chillingly confident. Don't ruin my perfect day. It wasn't just a request. It was a command, issued from a position of absolute perceived power. She believed she had won. She believed I was defeated. That whisper was the turning point. It wasn't just about getting justice for myself anymore. It was about stopping her. Stopping her from building her seemingly perfect future on the ruins of my life, without consequence, without acknowledging the cost. She wanted her perfect day, the one thing she valued above all else, the one thing she thought was untouchable, guaranteed by my silence and her manipulative skill. That was her vulnerability. That was the monument she had built to her own deceit. And that was what I had to dismantle. The evidence wasn't just proof of her past actions. It was a weapon, a lever. It wasn't about proving her character to the world. It was about showing it to the one person whose opinion mattered for her perfect day, David, the groom. Would he still go through with it, knowing who he was really marrying? Knowing she was capable of such calculated cruelty, not just to an enemy, but to her own sister. The rising challenges were immense. The wedding was only days away. How do I get the evidence to David? How do I present it in a way that is undeniable, unspinnable, and reaches him before he says, I do? I couldn't just email him. Alara had access to his accounts. She was that controlling. Giving it to family was useless. They were either already on her side or too afraid to rock the boat. Mailing it might not reach him in time. A public accusation was messy, easily dismissed. Every path seemed blocked. The pressure mounted with every passing hour. Alara was everywhere, oblivious or perhaps purposefully flaunting her happiness. Fitting her dress. Attending brunches. Her social media feed was a relentless stream of hashtags. Hashtag bride-to-be, hashtag perfect day, hashtag soulmate. Each post felt like a personal taunt. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of it all. The deeper I got into my plan, the more isolating it became. I couldn't talk to anyone. Family would condemn me. Friends were already distant. I was alone with this terrible knowledge and the dangerous decision I was contemplating. The deepening crisis felt like a physical tightening in my chest. The wedding was tomorrow. I still hadn't figured out the foolproof way to deliver the evidence.
Doubt not at me.
What if I was wrong? What if he didn't believe me? What if he believed her denials over my proof? What if it blew up in my face, and I ended up not just jobless and isolated, but publicly shamed as the bitter, jealous sister who tried to ruin her own sister's wedding? The risk felt astronomical. The potential fallout catastrophic. Was revenge worth this? Was exposing her worth becoming a pariah? I watched her at the rehearsal dinner, laughing, radiant, surrounded by adoring family and friends. David looking at her with such open affection, such trust. It twisted something inside me. He was a good man. He deserved the truth. He deserved to know the character of the woman he was pledging his life to. She was built on lies, on manipulation, on tearing others down to build herself up. Allowing him to marry her, to tie his life to hers, felt like complicity in her deceit. And then she caught my eye across the room. Her smile faltered for just a second, replaced by a look that was pure ice, pure warning. The same look from the rehearsal hall. It was a silent affirmation of her power, her expectation of my silence. In that look, I saw not just the dismissal of my pain, but the absolute certainty that she had won. That she could do whatever she wanted, hurt whoever she wanted, and still have her perfect life. That look was the final turning point. The doubt evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She took everything from me. My job, my stability, my peace of mind, my reputation, my sense of safety in the world. She tried to bury me. She expected me to stay buried. But I had dug my way out, armed with the truth she thought she had hidden forever. And I would not stand by and watch her celebrate her victory on the grave of my life. The evidence wasn't just emails and IP logs. I had compiled it into a concise, undeniable package. Copies of the malicious emails, cross-referenced with dates and times. The digital trail, linking them to her vicinity. Testimonies from former colleagues, cautiously worded, but hinting at the sudden, unfounded shift in perception about me. It was a story, laid bare, of calculated professional assassination. And I knew, deep down, that a woman capable of doing this to her own sister was capable of anything. That's the truth David needed to see. Not just the facts, but the chilling implication of her character. How to get it to him. The wedding day arrived, a blur of frantic preparation and forced smiles. The air was thick with nervous energy, the scent of flowers overpowering. I moved through the motions, a ghost in the machine of her perfect day. I helped where I was asked, my face a mask of serene indifference. Inside, I was a coiled spring, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. The plan was simple, risky, and relied on timing. I had secured a small, inconspicuous USB drive containing everything. My chance would be just before the ceremony. The groom's room. Before he walked down the aisle. It was the only window, the only place I could be reasonably sure he would be alone, or with only a best man who wasn't beholden to Alara. I made my way through the bustling venue, navigating the labyrinth of excited guests and harried staff. My hand clenched around the small drive hidden in my palm. Each step felt heavy, irreversible. What if someone saw? What if I was stopped? What if he didn't listen? I found the door marked Groom's Suite. My heart leaped into my throat.
I knocked, softly.
David opened it, looking nervous but happy, adjusting his tie. His best man was behind him, talking on the phone. "Oh, hey," David said, surprised. "You need something?" This was it. The moment. Everything hinged on this. My voice was steady, calm, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. "David," I said, keeping my gaze locked on his, ignoring the best man. I just needed to give you something." Before, I held out the USB drive. "It's important. It's about Alara. And it's something you need to see before you do this." His brow furrowed. He looked from my face, etched with a seriousness he had never seen, to the small drive in my hand. The best man hung up the phone, looking curious. "What is it?" David asked, hesitant. "The truth," I said, the single word hanging in the air. "About who she is. About what she's done." He hesitated for another agonizing second. The best man stepped forward. "Hey, man, wedding's in 10. Whatever it is. Just take it," I urged, pushing it gently into his hand.
"Please.
"Look at it.
Before the ceremony."
"That's all I ask." He looked at me, at the drive, at his best man, who shrugged, perhaps sensing the gravity in my voice and face. David nodded slowly, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Okay," he said, his voice quiet. "Okay, I'll look." I didn't wait for anything else. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, holding the key to Alara's undoing. I found a quiet corner, out of sight, my legs trembling. The seconds stretched into an eternity. The music started, signaling the imminent beginning of the ceremony. Guests began to file into the main hall. I stayed hidden listening, the distant murmur of the crowd, the faint strains of a string quartet. Time seemed to warp and slow down. I imagined him plugging in the drive, opening the files, reading, his face changing, the realization dawning. Suddenly, the music stopped. A hush fell over the venue, an expectant silence that lasted too long. Whispers started. What was happening? Why the delay? Then, through the doors of the groom's suite, David emerged. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock and something like horror. He wasn't looking towards the altar. He was looking
Lost.
The best man was beside him, saying something urgently, but David seemed not to hear. Then, the doors to where Alara was waiting must have opened, or someone must have called for her. She appeared, radiant, picture-perfect in her gown, attended by bridesmaids. Her smile was beatific, ready for her grand entrance. She saw David, saw his face, saw the silence. Confusion flickered across her features, quickly masked by annoyance. She walked towards him, her voice carrying slightly impatient. "David? What's wrong? We're ready." He looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the moment the perfect image he held of her shattered. He held up his phone, the screen facing her. I couldn't see what was on it, but I knew. He had seen it. The evidence. The proof of her cruelty, her deceit, her willingness to destroy someone she was supposed to love. Her eyes widened as she saw the screen. Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Blindsided. She hadn't just expected me to be silent. She had expected her actions to remain hidden forever. She had thought she was safe, untouchable.
What?
"What is that?" she stammered, her voice losing its bridal lilt. David's voice, when he spoke, was quiet, but carried through the stunned silence of the gathering crowd. It wasn't the voice of an angry man, but a heartbroken one. "It's the truth, Alara," he said, his gaze unwavering. "About you. About what you did to your sister." He gestured vaguely towards me, though he couldn't see me in my hiding place. "Everything.
The job.
The rumors. All of it." Her face contorted, not with sadness, but with sudden, ferocious rage.
She
showed you? That's a lie. She's lying. She's always been jealous. She's trying to ruin my day. Don't listen to her." She turned, her perfect bridal composure completely gone, looking wildly through the crowd, trying to find me. Her eyes scanned the faces, venomous. David held up a hand, stopping her frantic search. "It's not a lie, Alara. I've seen the proof. And even if I hadn't," his voice trembled slightly, "the way you're reacting now, the pure hate on your face, that tells me everything I need to know." He took a deep breath, the sound amplified in the silence. "I can't do this. I can't marry you." The words landed like thunder. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Alara froze, her mouth slightly open. "My perfect day," she whispered, not to him, but to herself, the horror of the ruined spectacle dawning on her. "There is no perfect day built on lies," David said, his voice gaining strength. He turned away from her, his back to the bewildered guests. Alara didn't cry tears of heartbreak. She didn't weep for the lost future with the man she supposedly loved. She screamed, a guttural, animalistic sound of pure, thwarted fury and disbelief. She ripped at her veil, threw her bouquet to the ground, her face a mask of rage and ruin. You ruined everything. I hate you," she shrieked, not at David, but in my general direction, knowing instinctively who was responsible for her downfall. I remained hidden, watching the chaos erupt. Her bridesmaids rushed to her, trying to calm her, but she was inconsolable, trapped in her own nightmare of a ruined spectacle. The wedding, the perfect, untouchable wedding, was over. Called off, not because of some external disaster, but because the groom had seen the undeniable truth of the bride's character, a truth revealed by the person she had tried to destroy and silence. I slipped away from my hiding place as the room descended into utter pandemonium. Guests murmuring, family members rushing forward, David being led away, looking shell-shocked. Alara's screams echoed through the hall. Walking out of that venue felt surreal. The weight of the past few months, the years of her subtle cruelty, the stress, the job loss, the isolation, it didn't instantly vanish. But the suffocating pressure was gone. The air outside felt clean, sharp. I hadn't ruined her day, she had ruined her life, and the evidence of it had simply been presented at the most inconvenient time for her. There was no triumphant feeling, not really. Just a quiet, bone-deep exhaustion. And, perhaps, a cold sense of justice. She had thought she was so clever, so untouchable. She had thought she could bury me, silence me, and walk away with her perfect life. But she had underestimated the quiet one. She had underestimated the power of truth, even a truth delivered in the 11th hour. She was blindsided, completely undone by the very proof of the malice she thought she had erased. Her perfect day was shattered, her carefully constructed facade ripped away for all to see. While my life wasn't magically fixed, it was mine again. It was no longer subject to her secret attacks, her insidious lies. I was free from her control, free from the expectation of my silence. It was a victory, yes, but a lonely one. The family fallout would be immense, the recrimination certain. But standing there, outside the now silent, empty ceremony hall, breathing in the cool air, I knew I had done the right thing. For myself, and maybe for David too. The sister I had known, or thought I had known, was gone, replaced by the screaming, hateful stranger I had seen today. Her perfect day was over, and my life, though forever changed, could finally begin again, built on a foundation of truth, not on the shifting sands of her deceit. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. And thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.